Welcome to episode 102 of A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Detty. And joining me this week, a man who I've finally joined at level 40, as we both plow through our Middle Ages, fighting fierce monsters such as back pain, irritability, and general grumpiness. Gaz! Say hi, Gaz.
Hi guys, and welcome to the club of being old.
Thank you. I'm new here, and what's it like?
Yeah, it sucks.
Oh, care to elaborate?
It doesn't. I mean, it's all just downhill, but it's been downhill for about the last 15 years. So
Okay. Have you picked up any nuggets of wise 40s wisdom to share with me? Like, to spoil it for me. Spoilers. Give me spoilers.
Yeah. Not good stuff. So I'll let you discover the shit stuff by yourself.
Oh, I do like discovery, but at the same time, I feel like this is one thing where I wouldn't mind a little heads up of, by the way, at level 43, your leg falls off.
Wow, I don't know what happens at level 43. I'm not sure what I unlock, so we'll wait and see.
On today's episode, guys, we're going to be covering scenario RM4. And now I know what RM stands for.
Really mediocre.
Whoa. Wait, me or
I mean, neither you or the scenario, because the scenario was pretty cool. But like I was trying to on the fly think of an M word for good, and then I couldn't think of any, so I started going back down. I didn't want to go to bad.
No.
Right. But yeah.
Yeah, just accidentally throwing shade. This is Terra Scale Lair. We're going to have another little catch up with the Beetle, and then we'll leave it alone for a bit. Unless you want to have a catch up every week, because I'm always interested to see, how things are evolving and what we've learned and, all that kind of stuff. And then the thoughts and final unboxing of the Vortex, aka the Holo Pact, which I'm looking forward to. Incredible. Like anytime we get to discover it, it's always exciting. So let's head over to scenario RM4. I'm getting really weirded out by these kind of code names almost. It just doesn't flow, but I can see why they had to do it.
Just before that, do we have any news? Any dirtbag news?
I feel like you do.
No, I don't. I'm just saying like stuff that we did. Like we did an unboxing.
Oh yeah. That's sorry. Yes, because I haven't put that together yet. I forgot it's actually a thing.
I forgot it existed.
Yeah. So yes, we did do an unboxing. I haven't, like I said, put it together yet, but it was for my next character, which is very exciting. Not really a spoiler in that I was going to play the Bleeding Claw. The designer of the Bleeding Claw has definitely held a gun to my head and said, hey, if you want to play Crimson Scouts, that's fine, but you're going to play this. Someone needs to play this, and it may as well be you. And I'm like, okay, cool. And now it's that time.
It's that time.
Yeah. So, we'll dive a little bit into that towards the end of this and just get some just general thoughts about it. But yeah, I'm very excited.
Cool.
So, after scenario RM4, we do our standard city and what's the other one? Road. Jesus.
Road.
City and road events. Because I think the writing and some of the decision making and the events that we've come across have been very interesting so far in Crimson Scales, and I think that they're worth just analysing and talking about. So, in city event number 3, a university bright spark enthusiastically presents us with an invention unlike anything we've seen before. Rubbing the bulge in his lab coat. he the way you read this out, by the way, in the playthrough was just amazing. You paused at all of the right times.
I feel like this has to have been written on purpose, right? Yeah.
He offers it in exchange for a small donation of 25 gold to support scientific advancements. The question is, do we pay the price or try to haggle? So basically it was like, do we want to spend, what was it? Offer the buy what the Bright Spark is selling, which was 25 gold, or attempt to negotiate a cheaper price. And this is cool because you try to metagame that a little bit, but it's quite difficult to understand which way the rider's going to go in, which direction.
Yeah, I like it from the aspect of the push your luck, because having a push your luck element in things, it always provides agency. I think that's the right word, right? Because you have the choice. The challenge with it though is you don't know the mechanisms to how you're pushing your luck, right? Because if it's a normal push your luck where it's like, hey, rolling dice, and if you push your luck and bet double down on it and roll X, then you can get Y. At least you know what your odds are, or you know what thing you're doing.
Hmm.
This is just like, did you want to try or not? And then you're up to the whim of the writers to decide whether you could or couldn't push your luck.
Hmm.
That's the only challenge with something like this because it becomes a little bit of a coin flip. But at least you have the choice.
Hmm.
It's not, do you want to buy it or do you not want to buy it? It's like, do you want to buy it or do you want to haggle? Because it could be a case where you're like, we don't really want to buy it. Or, hey, we don't have 25 gold, so we have to haggle. So it kind of gives you an option to at least explore the getting it without having to pay full price. So I like that still.
Yeah, it's a little different to Frosthaven having the keywords as well to think about, in that we don't actually use keywords in this mind apart from the actual races, right? Like
Mm,
when it's inox and strength and those kind of situations, because we don't have that in the back of our mind of who's got resourceful or who's got persuasive, that kind of stuff. We have to remove ourselves from that, which was what Frosthaven, mostly
mm.
had when it came to their events and
I
characters.
wonder if I wonder if something like this with say because this is the bright spark, right? So this is the flask,
Hmm.
and this would have been put in there because we unlocked him when we started. Yeah,
Hmm.
I wonder if a non-flask driven card, so not in the deck because he joined our party, but a neutral card through there where it's like, hey, this guy says, and it's the bright spark, but says blah blah blah. I've got this thing, and then it be like, if you've unlocked the bright spark, then you get a discount. If you don't, then he's like, no, you got to pay full price.
Hmm.
And that way, it's like a more neutral. Again, giving this idea that you can in some way work out whether you think you have a chance of getting a discount or not would be cool. But yeah, I like again, I like the whole aspect of it, and this predates the keywords, so
Hmm.
it's trickier for them to set, I guess, like conditions on success or not.
Yeah. Do you have an idea of whether or not, and this is something that I don't know the answer to, all the characters in all of the game, right, and all of the Haven series, are they characters or are they classes? Like, are there multiple Bright Sparks because Bright Spark is an actual class? So our Bright Spark has met another Bright Spark and that they're in the category of Bright Sparks, and people know, oh, there's a Bright Spark over there as opposed to there's Bob, the only Bright Spark, right? Is that kind of how it is? Because when I've made reference to, oh, this is a really good character, and also people reference it to this is a good class, and class makes me think of it's a class that multiple characters can become that class.
Mm.
Have we been cemented on this?
I don't know. If I was to hazard a guess, I'm saying they're unique.
Yeah, okay. Because
Um,
then if this is a card, you play the Bright Spark, you throw this event in there, you're gonna get Spider-Man meme pretty much all the time when it comes to these kind of events, right?
yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. It's like when we were chasing the Holo Pact Savas as a wanted criminal. It was like, did you want to go look for him? We're like, he's in our party. What do you mean? Like,
Well, that's what makes me
and
think it's a class.
yeah, well, yeah, I know, but the reasoning, my reasoning is and again, I don't want to go into too many spoilers for different classes, but there are some storylines that are unique to that character becoming a character. So, like the Harrower character in Gloomhaven, I'm pretty sure the story arc for that is that your character like turns into that character. So,
Mm.
like, and I think there's some others. Like, I mean, think like the Shackles, right? That
Mm.
that that's like a unique circumstance of that person being captured in time, in a sense, to do its thing. There's probably some more generic ones like the Savas that are just manipulating elements. They're supposed to be unique. I mean, pretty common. Um, but I suppose you could make the argument for the coral and the kelp and all that because they're. But yeah, it's a good point. Like, are they? You know, is this a unique character?
Is it a unique character? This is just quickly why I wanted to just double check one thing very quickly. In Postman Larkenbridge, and those known colloquially as Amber Aegis or Aegis often
Mm.
lack the depth. So is that a race, like a faction then, or a class, as opposed to this is the Amber Aegis?
Oh, yeah. So something like that. Yes. This the are you talking about the Beetle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah. So
remembering when we were learning about the backstory of the Beetle,
mm,
if it was one or more.
Yeah, so I think that's in a hive you have soldier ants, you have worker ants or stuff. I think that's a like a function, the amber aegis, right? And this is one that its colony has either died or something's happened, so it's like left and it's going to work with mercenaries. So I think that one particular is like a generic. This one we've got is unique, but there are multiple, and I assume there would be multiple for the bright spark as well. But that one we've got probably is unique.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's
So you're
interesting.
saying that's Phil.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. That helps understand. All right, perfect. We decided to give up the 25 gold and not risk the haggle in case it leads to, oh, you bastards, you cheap bastards. No, you get nothing now, which is obviously
Yeah.
the worst outcome. Well, you get nothing and you get cursed 100 times. Like, that's even worse. But we ended up getting item 27, translocation device, which,
That's right. I forgot about
yeah.
that.
Did that come in handy?
It did. It came in very handy.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
think it's
struggling to
going
remember,
to.
but I think I do remember when it did. Yeah.
Yeah. My slow moving, lack of ability to move multiple hexes character in the last scenario
Hmm.
made good use of it.
Because it
So for
allows
those
you
playing
to.
at home that don't know it, yeah, just basically swap with one enemy figure, positions with one enemy figure within range 5. So similar to, for those that remember us talking about the magnetic cloak, is that what it was called?
Magnetic cape, I think. But yeah, same
Cape,
thing.
yeah. From Frosthaven, which I ended up with on one of my characters and found that it was like MVP. That's very different because it was like teleport within range 20. But
Yeah.
this I can see is going to be handy because it's an outer cycle, non-card related move.
Mm.
So
Yeah, good item. Especially on you. You like swapping around. We call it venge swapping.
yep, from Vengeful Spirit from Dodo, if anyone wants to get in on the joke.
That's exactly it. Road event number 9 is where we ended up on our way to our scenario. When climbing through a canyon, we hear a desperate cry for help. As Savas is trapped, his leg wedged between 2 rocks for 2 days. He groans and extends a hand, pleading for assistance. Do we help free him or take advantage of his misfortune and loot his bags before moving on? And I'm a Savas, at least the Hollow Pact is. So I figured that I wanted to be nice. And I don't know, I find that sometimes making a decision, and it's not centered on me, but sometimes we don't make a decision. Making a decision that's going to be, I guess, traditionally a negative one, even from a story point of view, is sometimes hard for me to do because I have a conscience and I'm a good person in general.
Yep.
We ended up doing that and we ended up getting a collective mantle of purity.
What's that do?
I can't remember. But it's on the screen right now. So
Okay.
we won't talk about it. But yes, we'll move on from that. I definitely didn't prep those 2 items because I actually forgot to grab them from the thing.
That's right. How about while you're doing that, I quickly look it up.
Oh yeah, sure. Which is interesting because when we were actually looking at the items, when we're looking at my items, and I'm almost retiring because this is my retiring scenario, I was like, I still don't have a hat. And Mark had the goggles, and I was like, oh, I could really go with the goggles or the amulet of life, I believe, to give me the 1 health. But I didn't end up getting either, which I think both amulets are taken from you two, you and Phil. Anyway, and then when it said mantle, I was like, oh, that sounds hattish. It was not.
Yeah. I can't remember what it does.
Oh, Gaz. okay, that's fine. Let's head over there, Terrascale there. So
Right.
basically, the loose story was in my PQ, my whole party died, yeah? You found
I
it?
got it because it's not a helm item.
I
That
said
whole
that.
thing you were just saying about it being a helm item,
Yeah.
I was like looking in all the hats. Mantle of Purity, it's a chest item.
That's
And
right.
it says when you would gain 1 or more
Oh, of
negative
course.
conditions, prevent the conditions, and it's tappable.
It's really
And
good.
I think when we saw that, we went, this would have been great to have at level 1 for the washing machine Hollow Pact Detty, who's about to retire.
Yeah. Yeah, would have been very good to ignore the wound or even an instance of muddle will probably be the bigger one.
Yeah.
In setting up for a big turn. Would have been huge actually. Okay, So yeah, PQ, everyone died. Everyone in Crimson Scales originally had a party. All 100% so far that we've seen had a party that has been wiped from something. And there's a bit of a vengeance plot there, or, searching for answers. I think yours on the Galaxy was way sadder than mine. Mine was just, hey, this guy wiped your party, go beat him up, bring a new party in. And it's no different this time. So Terrascale is a big bad. Wipe my party, and we're heading in to deal with it because I've decided that the four of us are going to risk their lives to make me feel better. And then I can retire and leave you all.
What do you reckon your sales pitch was? Like, you had your 3 other party members got killed by this dragon.
Oh, I didn't say that. I said my 3 party members didn't want to help me defeat it and then disappeared. And I'm looking for 3 people because there could be lots of cool treasure and really cool experiences. And the town will sing tales about us for years to come, and all the glory and fame, and all of that stuff. I think that's how I sold it.
Sold, done.
Yeah, ignore all the bodies.
Dragon.
Yeah. So story-wise, dread gnaws at our confidence as we step into the mouth of the Terrascale's lair. The dim glow of crystals in the cave walls reveal deep gouges in the tunnel. Signs of the beast that lurks ahead. Each shifting pebble sharpens our nerves. And then we see her, watching, waiting. Her iridescent eyes glint from the shadows as a massive wine-red tail unfurls from around a stone column. The gargantuan drake slithers into view, hunger burning in her gaze. Last time we ran. See, we ran. This time we stand our ground. So the scenario goal was to kill the Terrascale Drake. And something I'm noticing in a lot of these scenarios, they don't say at the end of that round. Then read, the conclusion or whatever. It's just kill it, which is kind of nice, I guess, as a last stand kind of thing, right?
I mean, that's the ongoing joke, right? Every scenario, I always ask you, does it finish at the end of the round? And you're always like, yes, it always does. There was like one scenario once in Frosthaven that didn't, that we got caught out. So stop asking. And then I stop asking, and then you read it and go, when it's dead.
It's
and
really
I was like, I knew it. I should have asked, but I didn't.
It's really annoying.
It is. Now I'm going to keep asking.
I know.
We're not going to have another one for another 20
I
scenarios.
literally got beaten out of you, and now it's bloody back. Ugh. So this was a boss scenario. The Terrascale Drake is, just from a stats point of view, has 42 health for our difficulty, and we had a bit of a scenario difficulty mishap at the beginning of the playthrough where we realized that 3 of us hadn't leveled up in X-Haven, which kind of bumped everything up a little bit, which is fine. 42 health, 5 movement as a base, 4 attack. So they're not bad numbers. Hopefully nothing boosts those up. And then standard immunities, including disarm, immobilize, stun, curse, and poison. Has 2 phases. This is what I found very interesting about this fight, in that you've got a phase 1, which is sort of the beginning of the actual scenario. You're already thrown into the fray and you're fighting her. And then the rule was, once she's been reduced to 1 health, she kind of gets removed from the map. And then you can kind of predict that you're probably going to have another encounter further in the scenario with them. And it's really cool. Just even that. Remember our boss criteria? You were talking about things like, interesting mechanics and different things, this and that. And then the actual arena.
Mm-hmm.
Does that arena part get ticked off here?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, like, we were supposed to be in the dragon's lair. The mechanics, like, there were these pillars everywhere, and the mechanics used those pillars. So not only were they important for the, like, kind of arena to be built so that you weren't just in a giant empty room, but they were also tied in with the mechanics.
Yes.
So it kind of double ticks those things. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah. So basically phase 1, we'll talk about phase 1 and then we'll talk about phase 2. Phase 1, we had gnashing drakes. Like you said, we had obstacles kind of spread out. The actual image of the Terrascale Drake is actually this big drake hanging around a big pillar. So she obviously loves grabbing onto obstacles. And then she's got this ongoing effect. She's got this ongoing effect, which is actually, I think, the first time I've ever seen anything like this in a boss fight, which was Master of her domain, right? Before she performs either of her boss abilities, she jumps onto the nearest obstacle hex that is also adjacent to an enemy she can focus. And I think this is already exceptionally unique in that she's got almost this thing that will happen before either of the boss specials that can basically always happen. Sorry, not always happen, because there's a caveat, and it continues that at the start of the turn, if there's no enemies adjacent to an obstacle, so if you can't do that first bit, she then focuses on the enemy with the highest current health. So that means there's always someone on the board that she can focus, and performs a move +3, which becomes 8, which lets her pretty much go wherever she wants. An attack +3, which makes it 7. And then she wounds, immobilizes, and pushes 3 instead of either of the boss ability cards. So you now have this extra requirement that you have to factor in every single turn. If we're next to an obstacle, she's going to move to that obstacle, the nearest one, and do one of her boss specials. But if no one's next to an obstacle, she flat out goes, hey, who's got the most health? You. I can definitely reach you. I'm hitting you for 7. And you're going to get pushed, immobilized, and wounded, which is horrible.
Mm. And I think it's interesting because that attack of the there's no one next to an obstacle, so jump 8 and hit for 7 and all that extra crap that's pretty powerful. I think compared to all of the cards that she can draw in first phase, like all the boss specials and all that, that's the highest damage card there is. Plus the immobilize and the muddle are crap, right? And also the push. So that's really powerful. The interesting thing about how that works, though, is that that's not tied to an initiative, right?
No.
Because that can happen when any of the 6 boss special cards come up, 3 of which are boss special 2, which go really quick. So what it does is it ties this really powerful attack to multiple different initiatives, which means, I mean, essentially it could be boring in that if you never stood next to an obstacle, she's always doing that, which would be bad. But what it means, though, is that you can't play around. Like, if that was a card, let's say, hypothetically, one of her cards was do that, but it goes at 32. Well, you know, if you go really quick, you're always going to be able to scramble to a pillar and make it. But because it can be tied to boss special 2, and I think like one of the lowest initiatives is like 14 or something like that.
It's like 11.
11, yeah. Like there is a chance that on any given turn she pulls one that beats you, which means you have to plan ahead. Like you almost just can't go, we'll wait till the draw and we'll fix it up, right? Not without special tools like initiative boots or someone deliberate going really early. And so it's cool because it adds in this element of planning, not just I'll fix it now that she's drawn a bad card.
Yeah.
And I like that from a replace whatever she was going to do with this ability that you really don't want to happen.
Yep.
It kind of did. It raised the tension a little bit.
So much. It really it made it feel there's more rules overhead in a way that you have to worry about because it's not just 2 boss special 1, boss special 2. But it adds a lot more flexibility and making the fight more interesting, basically. We'll talk about boss.
And we copped it. Like it actually played out how we didn't want it to happen because of all those things, which showed why it's important. And it also kind of like it stung us a bit, right? Like it messed up like a couple of people's turns because of it, which is great from this is what it's probably designed to do.
Yeah.
So it's really clever in that sense.
Well, I mean, her first attack was literally a crit, right? It was attack 2 or something like that. It was relatively small. And it was a crit, but we factored in if no one was next to a pillar or not next to an obstacle, it would have gone straight for mark and it would have done the attack 7 with the crit. And like, imagine that first turn. It's just like, that's a restart right there, potentially, right?
Well, no, that's it, because no one was next to a pillar, but I moved next to a pillar to kind of aggro and tank a couple of the drakes that were in there or whatever was in there. And so I was like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll be here. So she jumped and hit me and crit me. And I was like, oh, okay, crit for 4. Cool, whatever. Well, crit for 2 times 2. But you're right. The idea was that if I didn't do that, she was jumping to mark and hitting him for 14 and pushing him and immobilizing him like and muddling. So it's like, whoa, okay, that's a huge swing.
Yeah, that one didn't have muddle. That one is a wound. It's a wound. But sorry. I know what you mean. Same thing, basically.
Yeah.
Her actual boss specials, we'll go over those really quickly. So boss special 1, which is the later of the boss specials, is the attack +1. Now, this is obviously after the beginning of when she activates. If she can jump to a pillar, like she just teleports to a pillar, basically, and of someone that she can actually target, and then she performs this. It's an attack +1, which kind of puts it at, I believe, 5. Pierce 3, and then all enemies adjacent to the target suffer 1 damage. And then a very key important part of this is that you then destroy the occupied obstacle. As that was another little mishap we had in that playthrough, but at least we nailed that early. We rubbed that one out early.
Yeah.
Pretty gross. Not very useful. Obviously, the PS3 adds a lot more grossness to it. And yeah, she's slowly, after this one, going to break down the obstacles, which then means less of that original requirement of if no one's next to, sorry, more of that original requirement of if no one next to an obstacle, she's going to do the big, mega bad attack consistently.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, and that's the thing with her going at late initiatives after she started the bouncing between the pillars and destroying them. We didn't fall into it because we just didn't have the sequence of events. But there's a high possibility that she jumps on a pillar, right? She destroys it, goes into the next turn not standing on a pillar anymore, right? She goes late. Everyone has melee attacks. Okay, cool. Let's stack on the boss. So everyone moves next to her. They're not going to be next to a pillar. So now you go, well, do I book my turn and just stand here next to a pillar so that someone doesn't get hit for 7 or 8? Or do I move in and actually do my attack and stack on her? And then she's just going to dive on someone and whack them. Like, it creates this interesting, like, well, yeah. So that again, it means that her late initiatives and her early initiatives both form some kind of threat, which is good. It's not like, oh, she went like, okay, easy mode.
Yeah.
It's like she went late. Now I have to work out, do I book my turn to save the party?
Yeah.
So
very much so.
I think from that reason, it's a really good design around how that functions.
Very much. Boss Special 2 basically works like the first one. The Terror Skull does their attack -2, so it's a smaller attack, which becomes 3. Becomes 2. That's the one you got crit by. Then Shield X self, Retaliate X self, and Heal X self, where X is the value of the stat card, which I think was 4 fast. So she effectively hits for 2, and then Shield 4, Retaliate 4, Heal 4, and then destroys the obstacle that she was occupying. And Boss Special 2 is the early one, remember? So many turns were a little bit ruined because of that. But hey, you got Gnashing Drakes in there as well to hit. But still, what were your thoughts on Boss Special 2?
Yeah, again, it's a hard one to play around because it's so quick and it books your turns because you end up in a space where, well, Shield 4 is basically take no damage most of the time.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing an attack 4, I don't want to take 4 retaliate damage.
Yep. And
So
even though you can wound her, and in our case rupture her, the heal's the thing that's going to just chunk right through it back up again. Yep. And Boss Special 2 always seems to be the one that pops up more often than Boss Special 1 in most of our bosses.
100%. Like, I feel like there's 8 Boss Special 2 cards and 1 Boss Special 1 and then one of whatever the other card is. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah, no, I think Boss Special 2 is really good. And I like with a boss like this, it having a heal. 4 isn't a massive amount that even if it spammed it, it would become impossible. Although with the shield, that could be really gross. Right, if it did it too many times in a row. But I like its ability to get rid of. I don't think it could be poisoned. I think it was immune to poison, right? Yeah, but I like its ability to get rid of wound and rupture, and then the general idea of a boss being able to get rid of those negative effects that can really chain into massive amounts of damage. So yeah, so I like that.
Just on that note, and we have been talking about it lately because of the other video we put together. What is rupture, guys?
Rupture is a negative condition that shares a space with wound, so it's kind of like a wound adjacent. And what it means is that any figure that has rupture, after they perform a move ability, so whether it's on their turn or it's forced movement, they suffer 1 damage. So not 1 damage per hex, because that would be busted with now how we understand how it works. It's just 1. So if you have rupture on your turn and you move, then you take a damage.
Yeah.
What this means with this boss particularly that was quite good is that she was guaranteed to move every single turn because that's what that her ability did. So you being able to put rupture on it was like, cool, we can at least tick 1 pure damage on her, as she's jumping around.
Unless she does Boss Special 2.
Correct. We still got the damage because she had to jump first, right? It just meant that we had to apply it again. So,
absolutely. So after phase 1, right? Basically, you get her down to 1 health, and she disappears. And when she disappears, the door unlocks. So the only door in this room unlocks. And then you have an intermission tunnel, which was just made up of a whole bunch of drakes, and it reintroduces you to a spinning drake and a rending drake and a whole bunch of obstacles. And it's kind of gives you that little bit of a breather, kind of, before you get prepared for whatever's going to come after that. Because there's a door at the end, and then you've got a big 2-tile room. And that's just big time boss arena written all over it, which we did. So we opened that up, and we had the 2 tiles basically to form one big arena. We had 3 spawn points, which is always good. We love endless spawns on bosses. And look, I'll be honest with you, it definitely was good for this. It raised the tension of it like dramatically. And then the special rule was basically at the beginning of every round, we spawn 3 normal gnashing drakes, 1 at each of the spawn points. Boss special 1 has now gone, and this is another facet of why I liked this whole boss fight scenario, is that they then can go, well, you've got boss special 1, 2, and all the special stuff that was in the first phase. Remove all of that knowledge. You don't need that anymore. Here's some new rules, and it's going to feel like a different boss fight, right? Boss special 1, focus on the nearest enemy and perform move +1, which became 6, and jump. And then do an attack +0, which was 4, at range 4 or 5. And then poison the target and strengthen affect all allies. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. A boss that had a specific, I mean, we've seen cards that affect units within, I mean, I think the Amber Aegis enemy type had something that did all that. Things at specific ranges, Geminate style. But this was one that, took a little bit of adjusting to get used to, but it's probably quite exploitable at the same time, right?
Yeah, the I guess the purpose or the interaction we found this boss special had was this one's designed to keep the range of, like, keep the boss out of your range, right? Because with the move and jump, it almost has 100% chance that it's going to find a space that's 4 or 5 spaces away, hexes away, and therefore it's like its chance to jump back, which becomes relevant when you talk about unlimited spawns, because it basically means you can't kite this out of the room.
No.
Right? Which, when we talk about what we didn't try to do that, but we accidentally tried to do that and found that it was just like, nope, I'm just going to sit here and shoot you, right? And you can't do anything about it. So that's functionally what it was. You know, it's a decent range attack, like 4 or 5 is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you need to close the distance, and even if you close the distance, it can still move further away. So it's kind of its chance of staying away from you.
Completely. And more terrifying also is that this room is covered in drakes, and you're getting 3 new ones every single round, and she's just strengthening all of them. No range, nothing. Strengthen all allies. And they're drakes. The last thing you want strengthened the drake anims. But drakes, you don't want them strengthened. Boss special 2, which is the earlier one, she performs a move -2, so that only becomes a move 3, and jump. And then an attack -1, which becomes 3. Target all enemies within 3 hexes. Massive AoE. And do a push 2, which proved to be really amusing for a certain person with a chained hat and muddle. Thoughts on that one?
So this is the other one that's then, okay, cool, I'm going to keep everyone away. So what was fascinating about these 2 abilities is that it's a lot of pumping out a decent amount of damage, but like primarily I think the damage was coming from the room. So yes, that one has the ability to hit all 4 of us and do a chunk, but that then pushes us away and out of position so that it like mitigates damage on her, because that messes your turn up like it did like with a couple of people. But also it pushes you into positions where the potentially strengthened drakes now get to have a go at you.
Yeah.
Right. So I love that it plays into this idea that the boss isn't going to be the one that just nukes you. It's not doing attack 7s, attack 8s, right? Constantly to just burn someone down. It's more making you interact with the arena.
Yes.
Right. And the other things in the arena, because like we couldn't actually just ignore all the drakes.
No.
Because there was too many of them.
Well, that was the main reason we didn't go into the room once we got in there. Because it was that thing, the skipping rope thing. It was like, hang on, when do we go in? When do we go in? There's more drakes. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Wait for them to go first. There's a chance that, because we were all still in that hallway, the intermission hallway, and they were all just there. And the person who's going to go out there is going to get absolutely torn to shreds. So therefore, you kind of delayed a little bit. Mark had set a big trap down, trying to work out when the timing is he was going to pull her in, and we're all just sitting there like waiting for the opportunity. And because there's just so many drakes out there. You're right; they are the difference maker. If it was more just the boss and 2 drakes, even with a really strong boss, it's not going to phase us.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that it's a very mobile boss, and without the drakes there, the scenario would end up being run around chasing the boss, which is boring. Right. I think and I've talked about this where movement is one of the least interesting parts of your turn in Haven. If the challenge is that you can't get next to her to do attacks, that's crap. But I like this idea that it kind of combines a little bit with the room and strengthening the whole room basically and pushing you around a room that has obstacles in it as well. Is a good way to make you have to interact with the arena, which I think, again, from a boss scenario is cool.
Yeah. Do you remember if the National Drakes, I know they have +1 if you are not on full health, is that right? Do they have another one that for allies? I can't remember. Like
I don't think they have an allies one.
Okay, if you're next to an ally, you get plus damage, no.
I mean, I'll look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, no, because I think that with, like, we've only just seen these guys in the previous scenario. They were blocking the cave entrance that we went in, and they were a little bit interesting. We were scary as to how we were going to handle them, but because they're low health and very swarmy, it was like, okay, this is not going to be too bad. But in this room, because of the strengthen as well, or they also have their own strengthen card from memory, they're self-strengthen. So having 10 of these things, because we were at max standee most times, even when if we managed to delete 3, even though we're not focusing on them and they're in a part of some kind of AoE, we're spawning 3 again the following round. This is every round. This becomes literally a DPS race.
Yep. And what actually happened early on is that we opened the door. They didn't really come forward. The next turn, more spawned. So we had about, 6 or 7 of them or something like that. Then they pulled their shield 2 heal self-strengthen card. So they had all strengthen, but they didn't come forward and we're still outside.
Yeah.
So another and 3 more appeared. So now there's 9 of them, right? And then the boss is pulling the hey, everyone have a strengthen. They don't move much as it is sometimes. Like looking at their cards now, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cards which are move -1. Right. So their movement is low anyway. So they were all getting clogged on each other. So we got the boss in the middle of the room shooting us. We've got these things that have just only slightly edged forward. And we're all sitting at the door going like, if you go in, I'll go in.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And getting stuck. So just to clarify, no, they don't have a +1 for allies.
Yep.
They have 2 that are +1 if they're not at their current maximum hit points.
Got you.
One's a range attack and one's a melee. But one card we didn't see this run was that attack, wound, move furthest enemy, move, attack, and that kind of stuff, which
would have been better.
No, that would have been gross. Like imagine if they
but to get them towards us while we're in the hallway, at least to make the first move, maybe.
Maybe. Look, I still stand by if they had pulled a couple of move cards early, we probably don't win this scenario because the whole front of that room would have just been full of drakes and we couldn't have got in. I feel like it would have been very limited how much and how far we could have got in, and we would have had to jump in and probably got killed. As it played out, without any spoilers, once we did decide to go in, I actually used the swap thing to swap into the middle of the drakes when they were still kind of midway in the room. So I pulled most of their aggro and let the other guys kind of go to town on the boss for a bit, and it pulled a lot of damage from that.
Oh, you went full Hodor.
I mean, I died like very quickly. Like you were talking about Beetle. One thing I learned about the Beetle was I need HP. Because if I don't have HP, I die.
Oh, that's kind of universal, I think.
Yeah, no. So, but if they, on those turns, if they had drawn that attack, jump for the furthest and attack, they would have hit me and then gone like, see ya, and then jumped over and just swarmed you guys, which would have spread the damage out so much, and that's what we wanted to avoid. So I think we kind of got a little bit lucky. We got unlucky that they didn't move much, but then we got lucky that they didn't draw some of their more gross cards.
When you put it that way, it was very balanced. But at the same time, because I felt it was more unlucky with the amount of times people were setting up retaliate turns and, positioning turns and all that. And they were like either doing a ranged attack, meaning they were leaving the person that were about to be retaliated on, or they just weren't attacking with the shield, heal, strengthen kind of card. The amount of times you had like that bit, that clutch bit, the Hodor bit, I don't know how successful you were going there, despite the fact that you were stacking a lot of retaliate.
Well, the problem was that they played this one specific card which played around all of my retaliate. So I had at this stage, I had like in one of those key turns, I had like retaliate 2 or 3 or whatever it was out. But I also had a persistent, which I haven't really played, which gives me range retaliate, I think on like 5 or 6 ticks. They played this card, well, they're all called Gnashing Drakes. So, but it's basically an attack in a triangle, adjacent triangle formation. So there's the hex, and then there's the 2 hexes next to it, and the one there, which is a melee attack, not a ranged attack. And so a chunk of them were able to attack me from range, meaning they ignore my normal retaliate, but it's not a ranged attack, which my thing specifically says ranged attack. So I was like, ugh, like this is annoying. And then I had another persistent out, which basically meant anytime I take 2 damage, they take a damage. They kept like pulling -1s, so they were taking 1. I was taking 1 damage, which sounds great, but I wanted to hurt them. Like I wanted them to take damage, but they were like, "Nope, I'm going to play around that." So yeah, it was very interesting.
And I mean, it was very heroic. And I would dare say it won us the scenario because all of a sudden we got to then focus on bursting her down. And by bursting, I mean chipping away at her while she was pushing. Like her repositioning, obviously from the movement and then the range thing, which we did get to use to our advantage when she did focus on you at one stage and move further back towards us. That was handy. But then after that, when she's doing the AoE push and all of that, it was messing up Mark, it was messing up Phil. Because they had planned to not be pushed and not have to travel as far as they needed. I was having a great time with invis and all that kind of stuff. It was just stab, stab, invis, stab, stab.
Well, that was one of the kind of things that I did, and how I guess I not abused, but used the knowledge of her boss special 1 to make sure that she stayed in range of you. Is that I moved to be the target, and then that meant that she wanted to focus me, but she wanted to move slightly away from me. So me being on the other side of her meant that she kind of pushed further into you guys rather than further into the back of the room. Because that's what I feel like. This is what that scenario. If we had slowly moved in, and then the wall of Gnashing Drake slowly moves forward, I feel like she just moves slowly back towards the back of the room and just keeps peppering us. You know, and then because they're spawning, we have to constantly fight through this wave of drakes to get to her.
But at least the damage is spread out amongst us, and it's not one person. Because if we did have our front line of Phil on one bit, you in the middle, and Mark on the other side, I could easily move my way over to her and start dealing with her. Mark's quite maneuverable as well. It's almost like letting the wave come through, and we all move past it as a possibility.
Could have worked. Yeah, that could have worked if we jumped over the wave. So yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of ways that I think this particular room in the scenario could play out, and I can see there being a lot of ways that people get in trouble.
Yeah,
because I think we almost got in trouble, but then we managed to buy a couple of rounds where she didn't really move around much, and you guys just like turned it up to 11 on the DPS.
Yeah,
and then that kind of got us through.
Yeah, I never doubted our ability to win this, not once.
I'm pretty sure I was like second round in the room, and Detty's just basically throwing his toys out of the cot, resigning to not retire because we won't have time to repeat it. Going like, no, there's just too many. No, we can't do this.
Just too many. It's just they kept booking turns. The amount of times everyone's turn was getting booked from just the card draw, and then obviously the standoff we had at the beginning. I was just like, no, this isn't doable. We fucked this up. But somehow we did it.
When does the scenario end? Is it at the end of the round?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. You should be telling me that.
That's it. So that's what I mean. All we had to do was kill her. We didn't have to survive. So.
Yep. And we did. We killed her. We got, stuff. Oh, we got a whole bunch of weapons from it, which is really cool, which their designs, which, I love that. And then, I got to retire. Everything came to an end. And I get to say goodbye to the Vortex, which is, kind of sad. I was really looking forward to seeing more about it and playing around it. I'm actually not sick of it yet, so it's a good sign.
That's cool.
Yeah. But before we get to any of that, what were your thoughts on this scenario?
This is probably in my top 5. It's definitely one of the best boss scenarios I've done in Haven.
No doubt. No doubt.
I think from a design perspective, I think from an enjoyability perspective, there it could go either way, and I think we got lucky. Like it could be pretty gross. I don't think too gross. Like I don't think it's I think it's well designed in that space. But I think it felt one of the things we've talked about from a boss scenario, and that's what I want to be really clear about really enjoyable from a boss scenario perspective. So just up against the other boss scenarios, not against all the scenarios in general. Because I think if this was a generic scenario with like a mini boss or just like I don't know, something else, I think it would probably be annoying in a way. But it's cool because it was the end of a kind of a line, and it does tick a lot of those boxes we're talking about. It felt like a WoW boss,
Yeah,
right? It
that's
felt
what I
like a lot.
wrote. It felt like a WoW boss. Yeah.
Yeah, so just having that first room and then you have to clear some trash, right? To get into the next room. And then
Mm,
you got the final phase of that boss where it's doing these things and there's things coming. All of that stuff felt very much like it had these scripted steps and it didn't over engineer it. So I'm like hats off to the designers for finding a way to bring all of those elements in without it actually feeling clunky.
hmm.
Because if you can get to a point where that feels like just too overbearing with rules.
Yes, easily.
What did you think?
I agree with you. I pretty much said it. It was the most WoW raid boss that I've felt, and being heavily involved in WoW over the years, I really very much enjoyed it. What I particularly took a liking to the fact that phase 1 and phase 2 felt very different. Uh, the importance of the ads, which does lay down everyone has roles to play, which I think is important for a boss fight. Everyone can feel like they have an important role in there, whether it be clearing trash or tanking or doing burst damage to the boss, etc. The fact that they split it up into 2 phases. We've had a lot of phase bosses that usually just stop you from one-shotting it. This time, like we've got the cards and that to do a lot of heavy damage, but due to the way the boss behaved and due to obviously the ads, we couldn't get that off. So it added to the extra challenge of knowing that we couldn't really cheese it either. Not that you'd want to, but you know what I mean. And then the boss special 1 and 2, but you get to see boss special 3 and 4 later. It's really cool to be able to just have 2. It's like having 2 boss fights basically in the one scenario.
Yeah, totally. And I think you're 100% right. Like it didn't stop you trying to blow it up, which I think a lot of the bosses that that's one of the strategies they use when they're designing the bosses to put those phases in. Like you got to do this and then everything stops and it doesn't, to stop you just doing massive amounts of damage. But this one just went, oh, we don't really care because you're going to have to do it again. So if you've got this sequence of burn cards, well, cool, your combo's gone now, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you go the other way, though, it had these little bits and pieces to stop it from, like, so if you want to try the brittle strategy, right? Brittle in a really big hit. Well, it's got a heal in phase 1. That's a pretty good chance of getting off. So you've got to time that so that that happens. Now, if you go after the heal, well, it now has retaliate 4 and shield 4. So whatever your brittle strategy, unless you got a lot of pierce, it's probably not working as much. So I like that it doesn't say I can't be brittled, right? And I know brittle's a new status effect for Crimson Scales, and I don't even know. Is it in Crimson Scales or only in TOA?
That's a good point. I did.
Because that,
We've had this chat, but I can't remember which
yeah.
one started where. Yeah.
But even on that, and then the other part of it is the way it circuit kind of gets around you doing those really big combos in second phase is just the maneuverability. So it doesn't do this thing where you can just pull it and keep it there for 2 or 3 rounds and just like chain all these abilities on it. It's like no, it's going to be moving and pushing you and doing all those things.
Mm.
So it gets in the way in a not like I just want to say in a not like really gross way. It just kind of does a few things that mean you need to be smart about what you do, and you can't just go, "I will just play these 6 cards over my next 3 turns, and it's going to be dead."
Yep.
Right. So I really like that. It's really clever. Again, really clever design. It worked for us anyway.
Yes.
I'd be interested to know from a community perspective of
Mm.
if people have found different. So
Yeah. I think the maneuverability is a very big point that I don't think we've seen all that much unless you've got teleportation or boss phasing shenanigans. But you're right. Generally, 4 people, let's just say 4 melee, standing around an actual boss, bang, bang, bang. The boss pulls a ranged attack, which means it moves back one to then pick one person to do a ranged attack or something, and then we close back in again and bang, bang, bang. This thing's literally moving all over the place. And that range 4-5 in the second phase just adds to it. And then, of course, you've got the volume of all the ads. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's it. I think the generic way of doing or going like, oh, let's stop people being next to me is it's like at the start of its attack, it does a push one and pushes everyone away, and then it does a thing. But then everyone just stacks back in. Like this, because of the maneuverability, it meant people can't do that. I was going to just draw a really quick comparison to people don't care about spoilers at this stage. So in Frosthaven, there's one of the bosses along the lurker line that is has a lot of ads in the room, has some spawns, has a boss, but has no phasing, right? And we found that was, I mean, one, we had a blink blade that just was absolutely off the walls, like bonkers in regards to it. So it did a lot of damage. But there was nothing in that scenario. And this is a really good example of that. It didn't care about any of the ads. It was like, I'm going to stand here and all the ads are just there to just try and get in your way. Whereas this one cared about the environment, about the arena, about the ads, about the obstacles, and its cards were there not just to pump damage, but to try and actually force you into decisions, which is good, which is really positive. And I think that's kind of, even if just it's one burst phase, comparing the last phase of this boss to that boss, this one was still far more interesting.
Yeah.
And you're doing the same thing. You just kill it as quick as you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really cool.
It's nice. Just even hearing you say all that, it's nice to know that you can make a boss without having phase mechanics like invincibility when it reaches a certain threshold. It is doable, right? And having extra base things that are tied to the behavior before it even does factors in a boss special 1 or 2. These little elements allow you to really customize the boss in a fairly restrictive system, right? Where the boss is literally a boss special 1, 2, and then 2 other cards that go in the deck. So kudos.
Well done.
What about Ormi? Does he like boss scenarios like this one?
If he's next to a pillar, he's probably cooked.
Well, there's also some point where I don't know how much health he had, but he might have the most amount.
Oh, you think he's getting targeted for that juicy 14 crit at the start?
Yes.
I think this is not the best, but it's not the worst. I think if you manage to keep him alive in the first room, he probably struggles to really keep up and getting into the last room.
He becomes the enabler for the last room because it's like, well,
Maybe.
he's gone in, so.
Possibly.
Amazing. Tell me a little bit about Bug's Life. This is your second scenario with it. Have we made a decision on how we're going to play this?
I think I've committed to the Retaliate style build because I only have 2 attack cards anyway, so I don't think it was really a commitment. But I did choose a Retaliate card for my level 2, which I'm not sure if I'm regretting my decision yet. So time will tell. I need to... Okay. It's hard to evaluate because I chose Slowpoke as my battle goal in this scenario.
That's right.
So what that meant was that I have 2 move 4 cards. One of them has jump. So my maneuverability is actually quite good. So my ability to get in front of people and then retaliate or set that up is actually good. But I could only move 2 because I
so
really
angry
wanted
at
those
you for having that.
It didn't actually stop anything because everyone did a great job. And when we got very indecisive about will we, won't we go in, I was like, I don't know, 6 hexes behind going I'm just going to keep moving slowly. But I think what I've learned is I need to be I need my positioning and maneuverability. Positioning is going to be really important. I still haven't worked out how to use the colony cards properly because a top action to put down a colony token that is either doing shield 1, heal 1, retaliate 1, just seems so much less impactful than almost any of the other cards the character has as top actions.
So it comes down to the top part. If they were on the bottoms, you would be spamming them a lot more.
Yeah, totally. Now, I get the idea is that you can move forward and then hold the line and then put one down. But Crimson Scales kind of is a bit more like Gloomhaven, right? In that it's more rooms and you move further along, like more dungeon crawlery. Whereas in Frosthaven, we found a bit of a blend between single room ones and hold the line ones and stuff like that. So I found I'm only 2 scenarios in, so this is not like but I found that it's tricky to like move forward and do something, then place a colony token and stay in the same spot and still get its benefits, right? While then wanting to stay where I am because everyone just moves past me. Or everyone kills the monsters that were next to me, and therefore I need to move forward again. And moving the colony is another top action, which so it's furthermore, it's like a top action to put it down and then a top action to move it. It's like I'm gonna spend my whole time just moving this colony through the scenario and I won't have done anything else. So I need to find that kind of balance.
I have two
Um
thoughts on that. Two thoughts on that. Number one,
hmm.
difficulty. If the scenario is harder and bosses, not bosses, but monsters live a little bit longer, you're probably more incentivized to take advantage of them because you're going to be more stationary a little bit longer than normal, perhaps. So you got more reasons to buff up your shield or have the heal next to you because you know you're going to be there for maybe 2 or 3 rounds. So that's a potential. Number two, in a similar vein, maybe we need to utilize you on your own a little bit more and split the party a little bit when the rooms are big enough and you can go, you know what, guys, I can hold my own over here. The rest of you go deal with that instead of you're the front line, we're bursting whatever you're frontlining because you're tanking and we're DPSing it down, which then results in you having to reposition and rebuild. Thus, it's not looking very appetizing because, like you said, everything's dead, then you move forward again.
Yeah, I think that might be part of it, and I think that when I get a bit like the level disparity is or difference is quite big. Like I'm level 2, you were like level what 6,
Mm.
Mark's level 7,
Mm.
I think. So like you guys are more powerful being in the front line as it is anyway and doing more damage, and so I also just need to kind of half support, half retaliate. So it's just finding that rhythm.
Totally.
But that's what I mean. It's specifically the colony tokens that I'm still just not quite sure about.
Mm.
And I'd want to see more of an impact from them before I start playing them more. Because I got a little bit of value out of them. Like I think I dropped one and Phil got some shield for one of the attacks. I found that the best use was to drop one on my rest turn or the turn before I rest, and then I'd play my bottom, which heals me if I'm next to one. And so I got like 1 tick, then heal 2, and then I got another tick, and then I got healed. So it was like but I have to basically stay in the same place for 3 turns.
Yeah.
Right. Which means that if it's a hey, let's go, guys, then I'm like, oh, see ya. Like, so yeah, I'm still finding the swing of it. But in saying that, I'm enjoying it. And I'm enjoying the kind of little puzzle part, and I'm looking forward to see what other tools I get that kind of go with all that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. I'm looking forward to seeing where you go with it. And I think obviously with our new party, you may find it may be completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see.
So also then finally we have Vortex retiring, which is kind of sad. I wouldn't play it again immediately because obviously there's all these new shiny toys. But if we were to then start, I don't know, Frosthaven or something again, I'd probably be pretty tempted to do it and then look into, the Void Pit kind of thing. But overall, I wanted more of an outsider view on it. What did you think of the Vortex?
It looked really cool for what seemed like a pretty vanilla, remembering that vanilla means good, everybody likes vanilla, but it's not exciting. Generate resource, spend resource type of character.
Look, when you put it that way, it actually sounds pretty bland.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So when you go, all right, so you're going to do these things to generate a resource, and then you're going to spend the resource. And if you hold on to them for too long, then you get negative effects. I go, oh, okay, cool. That sure, but I think it's all the ways that it all interacted together. It kind of looked like you always had a good amount of decisions, but also a good amount of decisions that had a varying level of impact. And I think the crux of any fun to play character, at least from my perspective, is again that agency on what you're doing. Right? If you go into half your turns where this is the best card to play now, right? Well, that just becomes an autopilot thing.
Yes.
And it never really looked like it was autopilot, but it also didn't look like it's like, shit, I got to jump through 10 hoops just so that I can play one card that's fine.
Completely. 1,000,000%. I think that that's one of the biggest importances is that I don't have a good strategy brain from a long term point of view. I play in the round that I'm currently planning for, and maybe the follow up. That's as far as I go. I don't really have a these two cards go first, these two mindset. So if I ever get a character that's similar to that, I'm going to be in a fair bit of trouble. But from a look at the board state and try to work out what my options are. There always felt like there were many, many options, especially once I got more used to how all the cards kind of worked. And that's what I love the most about it is I didn't feel like I had a lot of busted turns where I couldn't do anything, with the exception of if I couldn't generate the one Tide Pod to get the Void Consumes, which is the 3 Tide Pod consumption, that will book a turn. And that did happen a couple of times. But other than that, I felt in control. And yeah, I just loved all that.
And I mean, it also seemed like it needed a couple of levels to get off the ground. Probably a combination of you feeling it out and knowing what your rhythm is, but also we did this when we looked through some of the cards last time, maybe, or I don't know when we talked about it. I feel like we've looked at this, but it might have been when we did your level up.
Might have been,
We looked at some of the setup cards. Like that came, I would say later, but like a little bit later, that allowed the early level 1 cards to really shine.
Yep.
And that meant that this card went from being like, oh, okay, I guess that's fine, in Magical Christmas Land when the stars align, to, okay, I have a little bit of a combo here that I can do. It still needs some setup, but like I can do it. So I think that's also another thing that makes it more enjoyable as you go along.
Well, level 2 and level 3, I think, were the times where I had cards that, helped me piece it together and go, wow, that's an enabler. That's going to enable this and this and this. I don't know how many times I've seen you guys level up where that's the case. We've seen cards and we've gone, wow, that's really cool. But how many have kind of enabled what you were already doing to become even better?
Yeah, and I'd say that for playing the Galaxy, there wasn't really any of those. Like, all of them were very much standalone, and they didn't necessarily interact with each other heaps. There's some overlap. That's not completely true, but like it wasn't really a like, oh wow, this has now unlocked the real potential of this other card or these other couple of cards. So, but what I'm most sad about with seeing you retire is that your new level 6 card. Which was I ignore the move. I don't care about that. Heal 3, range 1, regenerate, make leaf, and I don't care about the dark. Like healing me, giving me regen, and giving me leaf was like, yum 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 yum.
It was
like that was just
the greatest combo. You get one scenario of it, and that's it. I give you a little taste, and back to Struggle City you go.
Yep. So.
And on the Holo Pact of all classes to have that, I just found it very interesting.
And for you to choose that one too, I was very impressed.
Everybody gets one.
So, do we unbox the rest of the cards?
Yeah, let's go. No, that's your Amber Aegis.
So we're starting from level 7, right?
Level 7. Okay, I've got it up. I've got Gateway to the Abyss. You there?
I am trying to load it at the moment.
Go for it.
Yep. Let's 4, 5, 6, 7. Gateway to the Abyss. Yep. This has got to be good, right? Gateway to the Abyss.
Gateway to the Abyss. Okay. So goes to the 66. The other thing about the Vortex is I found that the initiatives, once I had the key initiatives I wanted for a key combo or a key piece, like Obliterate, all that, I didn't really care what the other initiatives were. What I loved a lot about it is it taught me, I know initiative weaving and everything, but it taught me, hey, a middling initiative can sometimes be good provided you've got a character that has a lot of freedom with how they want to play it, which is, and you know what? I think it was Dawdler, the battle goal that I had early on. That was very helpful for teaching me that you don't need to always go quickly or be able to initiative wave, which is cool. So 66, I couldn't care. Create a void pit obstacle in an empty hex within range 2. Void pits are something that I was starting to pump out a little bit, but still didn't build around. Spend 2 Tide Pods to do an attack 3 wound for 1 XP. Target all enemies adjacent to each void pit obstacle. All allies adjacent to any void pit obstacle suffer 3 damage, and it's a loss card. Right. So you can create a void pit obstacle in empty hex. I've got a few cards that do that, including Implosion, which was the one before, which I didn't end up taking because I had to take Gaz's card. But then, yeah, target all enemies adjacent to each Void Pit obstacle. Right.
Okay.
I imagine you can't
So-
target the same one twice from 2 adjacent Void Pits.
Target all enemies. Yeah, probably not.
Mm.
So this seems like the payoff card for Void Pits, right? Like this is you put out a bunch of them in say the boss room over 2 or 3 turns, and then you play this and you get to spam out 4, 5, 6 attacks.
Yeah. Which feels
Interesting.
Deathwalker-y, right?
Very, yeah.
On bottom, we have a move 4, and then eat a Tide Pod to teleport 1 adjacent figure to any hex within range 5. If you do, that figure suffers 2 damage. Whoa. That's cool. Oh, I could have set up some awesome chasmas with you and just thrown you in the midst of stuff. Teleport an adjacent figure.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. I mean, and that's another setup, not that you needed more, but set up for your formations on either side, because you could move an Exosank and so
that's what I loved
interesting.
about the later picks is that I already had what I was doing and I was happy with what I was doing. These just become cherry on top, right? This is just extra stuff where that is not, I mean, it's cool. It's an additional toy, but I didn't really need it.
Yeah, okay, cool. Next one.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Ruinous Barrage. So it goes at a 38, but you don't care about initiative, so that's fine. The top is another burn. Okay, so now we're just getting all burn cards.
Burn City, yeah.
Yeah, Burn City. Okay, the top is an attack 3 with poison, get an XP. So just there. All right. Probably not worth burning just yet. Eat 2 Tide Pods to do an attack 6 with wound. So I assume that's on top of, right? So you'd be doing an attack 3 with poison and then an attack 6 with wound, which if it's on the same target is now an attack 7 because they're poisoned.
Yeah.
And then if you eat dark, so a third kind of step, if you eat dark, stun target 1 adjacent enemy. I really like this as a burn card from a design perspective, ignoring the numbers, right? Because it allows you to do a bunch of damage, but then stun something else.
Well, even the 2 targets I'm hitting, it also can be 2 different ones. I can impact 3 different targets right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really cool. Like, and the flexibility on a burn card, because those ones that do 7 damage and stun, you always feel bad because you're like, well, if I'm doing semi damage to it, like, I mean, maybe don't kill it, but then it's like, I don't know. Like, if I'm burning this, let's all burn this, right? But now if it's stunned, we don't want to burn this. So it kind of gets a bit weird. But this kind of gives you the opportunity of going in, dishing out a chunk of damage and stunning something and kind of being like, yeah, whatever. Like that's kind of as you said, 3 targets you can really impact.
Yeah, double care, right?
Oh,
and the first one also poisons, right, for the second follow-up. You throw a power pod in there, and I know we say that a lot, that you get your power pod, etc. And then any other way to, I don't know, do an advantage. And then 3 XP.
I was going to say, that's the part that I 3 XP on 1 card, Detty. That's like unheard of for the washing machine.
Yeah.
And then the bottom is an attack 3. Okay, so now we just have an attack on a bottom part of your card. Mobilize, suffer 1 damage and gain a Tide Pod, then eat a Tide Pod to teleport 3.
Yeah, and I can even skip that middle bit.
That's right. Like that again, that's really cool. Like, especially from a is this spammable because the top is the burn. The idea that this basically says attack 3, immobilize, suffer 1 damage to teleport 3.
Yeah.
Right?
It's cool because I've played it so much now, I can already see what cards I'd be comboing. Like Void Step, I used to take a fair bit, which is the move, teleport top, teleport to something and attack, which then opens up my bottom. Well. But yeah.
That's cool. I like it. I like that as a card. And again, you have a better idea about where it sits within your world, but having top moves and attacks and then being able to like teleport in and attack and then teleport back out, right? It seems good.
Well, I would have taken probably Ruinous Barrage, but for the main reason in that my biggest attack was the Void Consumes. That takes 3 Tide Pods, and sometimes getting that 3rd Tide Pod would be the make or break as to whether or not I'd get that attack 6 off with advantage, and it's not a burn. But this becomes, because I've got a lot of little ones with Untethered and, you know, other and multiple smaller ones, this is the big meaty, I'm going to delete something card.
Very good.
Mm.
All right, level 8.
Wow, Untethered just evolves. Entropy Unleashed goes at 28. This is level 8. Void Sight first. Then we've got basically an attack targeting 4 different things, and they're basically, oh god, I don't know how to call it, but it's like 2 on each side of me. It's kind of like an untethered, and then adjacent to that, another untethered to form an X, which is really cool. So it's an attack 2. If I consume any element, it becomes +1 to that attack and an XP. And then if I eat 2 Tide Pods, +1 attack and poison. So it becomes an attack 4, just like Untethered is, just cost a little bit more, but it's hitting 4 things now.
Wow.
And I have a plethora of ways of getting into that position as well. Provided, yeah, I reckon there's already many times that I don't quite get the Untethered, but I've got the 2 on the side, and it'd be easy to find also the other one next to, yeah. I so far love it.
Even just looking that as a target 2, like if your optimal use of this is just move forward and hit the things in the 2 hexes next to you, right? Having those other bits isn't that hard. Being able to void sight into an attack 4 and poison on both targets is pretty good from a reusable card.
Yes.
Like that's quite good.
The bottom is a heal 5. I had it. Range 3, target 3. Ooh, curse.
Ooh.
Regenerate. And then target any enemy or affect any ally. 1 target must be an enemy. Oh, so I do heal an enemy as well. And then any element and avoids a Tide Pod.
I don't know about how good that is and whether you would choose it or not, but I love the design of that card.
Oh, yeah. Very much so. I also don't know how much I would play that.
I mean, because this is similar. I had the Earthshine one, which was like heal 1, stun, poison, know, at range, whatever, or my Galaxy. Like you can use this on monsters that are in full health and just throw 3 curses in their deck, right?
True.
And regen, which doesn't matter if they're on full health.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they're on full health. I mean, look, you're not using this on an enemy that is like taking a lot of damage, right? Just because. So it becomes a bit tricky.
The other thing is I can spam this at the beginning to heal you guys up and give you all regen and fill your decks with curses so that the time where I play the top of Shrouded Grasp and I start invising and cursing myself, we've run out. So.
That's true. So yeah, that's an interesting card.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
All right. The next level 8 card is Tendrils of Night.
Ooh.
I just have to say, after reading the last one, Entropy Unleashed, I actually really like the names of the Holopact cards.
Yeah.
Like they're really kind of cool.
Yes.
They're like halfway, but they're like cool and edgy, but not too edgy.
Not too edgy.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Deathwalker, I feel like is too edgy. Shackles is too edgy. Right? This is just on the brink.
The right amount of edge.
Yeah. All right, Tendrils of Night. It's a loot 2. All right, cool for a level 8 card. Sure. All figures in a looted hex suffer 2 damage. Gain a Tide Pod for each damaged figure. I assume there's a max of 3.
Yes.
Okay. And then eat dark to go invisible. Gain an XP.
And I don't curse myself. Interesting.
And you don't curse yourself. Yep. It's going at a 44 as well, so middle of the road for initiative. Then the bottom is destroy 1 void pit obstacle within 6 hexes. If you do, you may consume a Tide Pod to teleport to that obstacle's hex and then perform attack 3 with poison, and you can eat a Tide Pod to add wound and generate dark. All right. So summary, destroy a void pit within 6, teleport there and attack something.
Yep. Interesting. That's a tough decision. Because obviously the bottom of that will help with Tide Pods, but I've never really concentrated on putting them in the right positions of where I need it. I mean, if you spam them out, and you've got amDs to do that as well, which I've drawn a fair bit lately. Yeah, that will kind of enable that a little bit more and plan around that. The top is, I don't really loot, but a loot 2 is pretty big. Like it's a loot 2 non-burn.
It's very, very rare that you see a loot 2, right?
Incredibly.
And in the small amount of times that I have seen and used a loot 2 in, it was probably Gloomhaven, I think. it is a really big radius. Like when you actually use a loot 2, you go, holy crap, there is so many hexes this takes up. But it is a top. It is a top. So
Yeah. It is a top, okay, in Viself. I mean, this could be how I treat. There was the disarm one, I forgot what it was, and that makes me go invis, but it disarms me. That I was saving right before my long rest, so I would then go in with a long rest. This just completely deletes that card and allows me to prepare for something in the future. But the problem is going to be around the Tide Pod thing for damaging figures. But that will never affect teammates because generally you will have no loot on the area that you ended your turn in. So it'll really only affect the monsters, right?
yeah, true. Um, I just have to say there is absolutely no way you're not taking Entropy Unleashed.
No, there is. Like,
Really?
I agree with you. I agree with you. That's my first gut instinct. And now I'm looking at Tendrils of Night and I'm just processing in my head how else I would make use of that. The bottom is insanely niche, but there will be a time that I will play, and this is what I mean. There are times that as I'm playing and I'm slowly putting a Void Pit out, and I'm hitting something that I'm looking at my cards and going, okay, let's see the board. Oh wow, there's a Void Pit right there. I can actually use this, and that's where it may come in handy. But yeah, Entropy looks really good, even for the example you gave before of just even two things adjacent to each other would be good.
But I mean, like, this is the thing, right? You're getting to the point. If you took Ruinous Barrage, that's going to attack 3 on the bottom. This one has an attack 3 on bottom, which actually doesn't care if there's a Void Pit or not. It's just that's an additional bonus. You can just be standing next to something and do attack 3 with poison, right? So you are kind of very quickly acquiring multiple attack on the bottom actions on cards. And I can see this world where you're just like throwing out 2 attack abilities every turn for like 2 or 3 turns in a row and just like melting shit. So interesting.
All right, the alts. Level 9, we get No Escape. Sounds cool. Goes at a 57. Pull 3, range 4. Pull 3, range 4. You may pull the target into hexes containing obstacles. In each case, the obstacle is destroyed. The target suffers 3 damage, gains stun and wound, and you gain 1 XP.
Interesting.
Okay. The bottom of it is create up to 2 Void Pit obstacles in empty hexes within range 4. So we go 2 within range 4, get a Tide Pod. Teleport 9, not 7, not 8, 9. This teleport must end in a hex adjacent to a Void Pit obstacle.
Interesting.
Thoughts? I don't know because I didn't invest in Void Pit. I think if I invested in Void Pit, I would have a better idea of how often I can get them out, how consistent, and all of that, because that would become like it's a good card. I think it's definitely a good card. It's just I can't see it because my brain didn't process it when I was playing it. That is all.
Yeah, the bottom of that probably looks like it wants to really go with Gateway to the Abyss, the one that like does an attack on everything that's next to a Void Pit, because this is kind of just put 2 Void Pits out within range 4, so you just place them anywhere you want, right? Plus, if you got another couple out, the teleport's cool, but you don't even need it. So yeah, it is interesting because this is very much did you invest in like Void Pits? If so, this is probably good.
And I do like that. Like, I don't feel bad for missing out on that because I didn't really go into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The other level 9 card is, I'm going to mess this word up. Precedent? Void Mastery. Okay, cool. All right. This is the Master of the Void. All right. The first time each enemy ends a move ability adjacent to you this round, perform attack 3 targeting that enemy. During these attacks, you may eat a Tide Pod to make it +2.
Holy shit.
Or eat Dark to disarm. Okay, so it's a round persistent. So it goes at an 11 as well. So you're talking about not caring about initiative. Well, this doesn't care about initiative either because it just goes first most of the time. So basically you play it and anything that moves next to you, you get to attack for 3. Well, for 5 if you eat a Tide Pod.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I guess, maximum of 3 times. So maximum of 3 attack 5s. Now, with the eat dark to disarm, you can't do that multiple times in a round. So if you eat it once, does that mean that all of it applies, or can
Oh,
you only do it once?
I dare say it's one.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Um, Fascinating, because that's you getting hit by a
Completely
bunch of
different.
stuff is really not
I mean,
a
there are
thing.
cards that I had earlier, and even in the last scenario, like the one Enduring Darkness, which I did take, the top of that,
Mm,
which has got the ward self. There are rounds that in my head I was just like, oh, there's a chance that I could play this and do a round where I'm absorbing. I play
mm,
my play style, and then there's one round per rest cycle that I'm going to give you guys a break and potentially jump in and take all the focus
mm.
as a thing. And that could be for a similar situation, kind of like
Yeah,
that.
it's just fascinating
Mm,
because it's not retaliate, it's you attacking, right? But it's after they perform ends a move ability adjacent to you. So it kind of is an awkward spot where you need to go early, which the card does, which is fine. But you need to move, but not move next to the enemy. Because if you move next to
yeah.
them, they're not going to move next to you and you don't get the attack. But then most of your cards are melee. So if you
Yeah,
like
very good point.
it's a yeah, I don't know what like a lot of your bottom actions are if there's a good one to tie with that. But yeah, that just seems interesting. Seems interesting. So and then the bottom is a move 4, suffer 3 damage, all
3.
figures adjacent 3. All figures adjacent to any hex you enter during this movement suffer 1 damage and gain wound. Gain 3 tide pods
All figures adjacent. Okay.
to any hex you enter. Okay, so you kind of move 4 and then wound everything on the way through. So you become a Beyblade.
Yeah, it's a little Beyblade.
And you get 3 Tide Pods.
I'm very amazed and surprised at these cards, all of these cards that we've just basically read and unlocked, in that they have not felt more of the same. Even all we got all the way to Entropy Unleashed could have been just a more beefed up version of Untethered Advance, which is probably one of my staples. But well, it is, but there's
Mm.
more to it, and the other side is also very, very interesting. They have just been fascinating at how further outside the box they've just kind of taken things without saying, "Hey, remember that attack card you used to attack? This one's better because it's a bigger number." Um, they've just gone whacker with it, which I love.
Mm. I'm a little underwhelmed with the 2 level 9 cards, but only because if I'm expecting an alt. If I'm just expecting a good utility, another card that goes into play, and I don't know the character, as well as you do. So they don't all say attack 10 everything in the room, right? But I love the different abilities that are on there. Like they are really
That's
cool. So
yeah. I think that's 100%. You're 100%
mm,
right. Just how crazy and different they are. Like, oh god, yeah, I would love to play that again. Um,
mm,
Probably twice, just so I can do the Void Pit one as well, all the way to 9 one day, maybe in 2.0, right at the end.
when we've run out of
When I
characters.
run out of characters, I'll
Yeah.
totally revisit this. This is just so cool, and it's purple, and just everything. No, I
And the mini was really cool as well. It's probably one of the
yes,
better looking minis that I've painted. I think it does look cool. It has a Doctor Strange kind of look to
yeah.
it. Again, it was like edgy, but not too edgy. It didn't seem like Death Lord 76. It felt like kind of that Doctor Strange on the edge type character, which is cool. I
Yeah.
liked it.
If you were in a situation where you had to play the Vortex, does it look like a character you would enjoy?
I think so. I think so. The thing with playing a character that someone else has played, especially just recently, is that I don't feel like there's anything new. So part of the excitement of playing a character for me is learning how it works. I feel like a lot of that has been part of the way it's been paved by view.
Got you.
You get what I'm saying? Like you've
Yes.
shown us how to play it. So yes, I think mechanically, yes, I think it would be fun to play, but I wouldn't enjoy it from a sense of like, I don't think I could do it better than what you did. And I don't think that I definitely would go the Void Pit route because it would be different. But yeah, I guess that's probably where it lands.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I can officially say that out of every character I've ever played, quite strongly, and I've said this, it's probably been my favorite, which is huge. So it's sad to see it go, but now everything I will play, including this one, will be compared to it in terms of how I feel about it. So it's a
Ooh,
big
not a
bar.
high standard. Like, this is the best class I've ever played in any Haven. So everyone else following this, good luck.
And it's actually very cool because one of our like early original listeners also, when they found out we were playing Crimson Scales, mentioned, Detty playing Washing Machine, it's one of my favorite characters. And I didn't hear that too much, where you sometimes hear that about others. I know it's not a bad one, but yeah, it just made me think about that. I'm going, you know what, same, same.
Yeah, I can completely see why. It looked really cool. It looked very cool. So
yeah. Anyway, that is all we have time for today for episode 102. Join us next week as we blood the Bleeding Claw, possibly retire a chained helm, which means another unboxing could be around the corner, including the one that I forgot to mention earlier. Do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think we'll just keep barreling on. I think it's going well so far. The scenarios have been interesting, and I'm looking forward to. It is going to be a new look party, right? I'm new. You're going to be on a new character. Phil's, I think, starting to work out the gem, and he's starting to pump a little bit. Despite his reaction to it, he seems to be like, "I'm not doing very much," but he's actually doing quite a lot.
Yep.
And he's doing really well with it. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we do lose the chained helm soon, because that means we have a third variable. I don't even know what symbol he has. So
Tusks, I think.
Oh, that's going to be
whatever it
melee as
is.
well.
I think he wants it to be ranged, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think he does too. So I think we all do. But anyway.
All right, amazing. Well, I've been your host, Detty. I've been joined again by Gaz.
And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist.